Yeah, there is. I'll take care of it. I haven't got to catch Yeah. Well, I've been waiting for the stop.
Well, I don't know, this is one tool is it's going to put a lot of the snow. It looks like snow different. The street bound is big as for the snow. Pick it up and they disturb all the vegetation. They disturb something. Try to see how they get the big mistake. Even all that turf around the snow's not down, it's going to cause erosion. It's going to be a mud.
Taking the fun out. What do you want?
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. It's 6 p.m. It is 6 p.m. and we're starting right on the dot. Well, good evening. I want to welcome everyone to this mayoral debate. It is fantastic to see so many people interested in the future of this great city. I want to thank all of you for coming. This is a great exercise in participatory democracy, isn't it? This is the way it's supposed to work. Thanks. And I would also like to thank our candidates for all agreeing to arrive on one night, which wasn't sure, but we were very fortunate in getting everybody to come on one night. I am Rex Rhodes, and I'm editor of the Sun-Journal newspaper. And this debate, as you can see, is being sponsored by the Sun-Journal, the Lewiston Public Library, and the law firm of Norman Hanson Detroit. Before we start, I'd like to thank Rick Spear, he's somewhere in the room, for helping us get this arranged and providing this great space. I would also like to thank the 3 student advisors who are helping this evening from the Youth Advisory Council of the Lewiston City Council. That's Amran Osman, Iman Abdallah, and Eric Hall. Thank you. And they're great young people already participating in our democracy. The format for this debate is on a handout that you probably got coming in the door. So I will not go into all the details and the rules. If you just look over that, we'll be fine. You were offered a card and a pencil most likely when you came in the door. You can use that to jot down a question. When you do, you can pass it to the left or to the right, and we'll have people collect that. We may be able to work that into the debate, but we have a large number of candidates, and it's going to take time to go through all the questions. We have other questions being submitted electronically. We are live streaming this debate on the web, so I welcome all of our online audience, which is cool to have. The videotape of this will be available later on sunjournal.com and also on Great Falls TV. If you own electric devices here, and he is rear. This date is scheduled 90 minutes for questions. All the candidates to be civil, to be succinct, and to stop talking when your time is up. And now I introduce Mr. Shane Wright, our moderator. Thank you.
I just want to start by reiterating a few thanks. As Rex mentioned, it's great to see so many people here, however many more people are viewing online. Again, it's great to see all the involvement. I want to thank all the candidates for being here tonight, and thank you for your interest in public service in general. I want to take a moment and do a brief introduction of each candidate. You may notice that the candidates are seated alphabetically, the far end of the table moving this way. So on the far end of the table away from me, we have Ben Chin, who is the political director of the Maine People's Alliance and a graduate of Bates College. He's married and is expecting his first child right around Election Day. Next, we have Luke Jensen, who is a banking specialist at TD Bank in Auburn and a lifelong Lewiston resident. He was class president of Lewiston High School in 2009 and is the former chair of the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council. Next, we have Robert Macdonald, who's completing his second term as mayor and seeking his third. Mayor Macdonald is a retired Lewiston police detective. He's married with 4 children and 5 grandchildren. Next, we have Stephen Morgan, who's a former Lewiston City Council president, past chairman of the Lewiston Planning Board, and former member of the State Board of Property Tax Review. He's a local realtor. He's married with 2 children and 5 grandchildren. And closest to me, we have Charles Soule, who's a lifelong resident of the Twin Cities, a graduate of Edward Little High School in Auburn. He's a veteran, a volunteer of several downtown charities, and been involved in Lewiston politics since 1986. So again, we want to thank you all for being here tonight and for your participation. I also will not reiterate the rules. I know the candidates know the time frames. There'll be a question. We'll start with an introduction for each of you, then questions that will start alphabetically, move down the table, and each candidate will have a chance to respond. As mentioned, Chris is keeping the time. When there's 10 seconds left in your time, he will hold up to let you know that. When the 10 seconds is up and your time is up, he'll hold a sign to stop. If you can please, finish the sentence that you're on and stop. We do have several candidates, and I'm sure a lot of questions will be submitted. So the more we can keep within the time constraints, the better. And along that same line, if the audience can hold any applause until the end, just to keep things moving along efficiently throughout the evening. So with that, we want to start to give each candidate 90 seconds to make an introductory statement. And we will begin at the far end of the table with Mr. Chin.
How's this? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Wright, the Lewiston Sun-Journal, and the Lewiston Public Library for hosting tonight. It's an honor to share this stage with each and every candidate. And my wife are unfortunately owned by Louis Joe Dunn. 3 years ago, I used to run in the neighborhood behind St. Mary's on my way to Morningside Park. When I knocked doors there a few weeks ago, it was barely recognizable. The blight of abandoned, foreclosed, and condemned buildings is spreading, and with it, our reputation gets worse. This is the direct consequence of corporate slumlords, of destroying buildings without plans to replace them, of pushing the problem into the suburbs, of destroying our property tax base, of erasing the value in homes it has taken generations to build. I'm the only candidate with a fully paid-for plan to tackle these challenges head-on. I want to talk tonight about building 100 units of resident-owned housing, creating economic development zone on Lisbon Street, of investing in high-wage blue-collar jobs and solar energy, and of making sure immigrants can learn English and enter the workforce. These are big ideas, and I'm also the only candidate that has the experience and the track record of getting big things done. I've helped protect 50,000 seniors from losing their prescription drug assistance, brokered a $22 million property tax assistance deal, and protected same-day voter registration.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen.
Thank you very much.
Stop. Mr. Jensen?
Thank you. Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Luke Jensen, and I'm a proud fifth-generation Lewiston resident. I'm young, there's really no denying that. It can sometimes be difficult to get respect and be taken seriously with a baby face like this. I really do have strong convictions, but I'm often seen as the underdog. This race is certainly no exception. Some people won't take me seriously, but it only motivates me to work twice as hard. I've learned a lot on the campaign trail this year. Lewiston needs bold, realistic plans that will actually bring about needed change. Under my leadership, we will reinstate 3 positions cut in the fire department: a battalion chief for prevention and training, a fire inspector/investigator, and a fire prevention clerk, which had reduced to half-time. We will create a city advisory board tasked with advising the mayor and city council on issues specific to the rural and suburban areas of town. The mayor's office and school committee will have a much closer relationship. The mayor of Lewiston will have an unprecedented presence in Augusta. And we will see a continued development of the riverfront area. And under my leadership, We will adopt an ordinance similar to ones adopted in Bangor and Augusta that require property owners to register with the city if they leave a property vacant for an extended period of time. These are realistic goals, and I plan to accomplish all of them in the next 2 years. Let's send a message to the rest of the state. Lewiston is not dying. Lewiston is a city that the state has yet to meet. Thank you.
Mayor Macdonald.
Good evening. I'm glad everybody showed up tonight. I really appreciate it. I've been mayor for 3.5 years. Okay, since I became mayor, on Lisbon Street, we took an old dilapidated building. We turned it into something that would have been developed, probably would ended up getting taken down. We turned it into a show place, and we put 600 jobs in there. We also have businesses on Lisbon Street. Those businesses are there, a lot of those businesses are there because when Governor LePage was going to vote historic tax credit item in the budget, I was able to persuade him not to do that, and as a result of that, these people have been able to continue, get their businesses going. Okay, we have removed 58 rundown houses, which were there long before I ever got here as mayor, but we've been very aggressive in that. We also created a pet park, which is between the city and the neighbors up there. We have a collaborative, and that's how it's running. It's not all taxpayers' money. As you know, I'm big on welfare, and I've been up to Augusta a lot more than I've been in Lewiston, trying to get welfare on, but we haven't been able to do that yet. And lastly, I do have a good person. Okay. I'll stop.
Morgan.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Congratulations to all the other candidates. Let me get right to the point, which my wife would say he usually doesn't have a point, and that's part of his charm. But I've owned businesses and given jobs throughout Lewiston. Lewiston needs a mayor and an ambassador who will bring businesses in Lewiston and stop watching them going over the river into Auburn or down to Tops or Augusta or Portland. I plan on working with Lincoln Misty, our economic growth people on the staff positions, and work with some of the largest investors and entrepreneurs in the inside and outside the state. I have 20 years as a realtor, 20 years on the commercial realtors. I've negotiated these kinds of transactions. This will in turn build our tax base so we can bring back services that we've had during the recent downturn from the economic fallout these last few years. This will also create jobs and other economic opportunities for Lewiston citizens. We need to continue to target welfare fraud, and I'm sure no one will disagree with that. But at the same time, we need to be sensitive while preserving needed services for our elderly and our most vulnerable citizens. Lewiston's image is something we all need to work on. We want Lewiston to be a city where people want to come and live. We have numerous colleges, arts, restaurants, hospitals, and we're at an ending point. Some new and growing established businesses help that. Thank you.
Maine has the fastest growing aging population in the country. But this election should not be turned into a young versus aging. And we must be mindful of this in government and in respects to the non-allowance of creative opportunities for the advancement of the millennials. Before you are two American flags. Can you tell the difference? This is the one my father fought for and helped free the conquered and under extermination besieged lands of Europe, Russia, and the world of the middle 20th century. And this one is the one I volunteered for in 1973 to join the service. which stood for national civil rights, equal rights for women, civil rights for minorities, and now must show compassion for the path to citizenship for immigrants and their 14th Amendment right children. But it will not be a given. What will America look like for the future Americans? That will be determined by a gradual passing of the torch to the next generation.
Thank each of you. Now we'll begin the question and answer session of the debate. And just a brief reminder, I'll ask a question. We'll begin at the far end of the table, and then Mr. Chin will go first. He'll have 90 seconds to answer the question. 60 seconds to answer the question. Then each of the other candidates will have 30 seconds to respond, rebut as you see fit. Just a reminder to keep your eyes out for the timer sign in the front. And as I mentioned, we'll start with Mr. Chin. The first question. Lewiston has lost many rental units over the past several years, and demolition was a key part of Mayor Macdonald's campaign 2 years ago. Has tearing down buildings helped landlords, tenants, and downtown in general?
Thank you. I was, like I said, in this neighborhood right around the Central Maine Medical Center, and the overwhelming message that I took is that when you tear down a building, people actually go somewhere, and they're displaced out of downtown, and they move into other neighborhoods where they can find affordable housing. So tearing down housing, while it's true that certainly beyond repair, we need to tear them down, that can only be part of the equation, and we've been investing in that side to the tune of $4 million over the past 10 years. I think it's time to start thinking about what is our actual future for housing, what's an actual strategy. That's why in my plan, we're going to try to go back to the time when the majority of housing downtown was actually owned by the people who lived in the buildings, where we could actually create 100 units where each and every tenant had an ownership share, a part ownership share in the building. This is the only method that has actually been proved to actually make sure that housing is quality and safe and affordable. And if we start to move away from that just to demolition, people are going to go somewhere, and it just doesn't solve the problem. Thank you very much.
Jensen?
Yep, we absolutely should continue with the demolitions. Absolutely agree with that. I also think we should introduce a city ordinance similar to one in Bangor and Augusta. What it does is it utilizes a state law that already exists and requires landowners to register with the city if they're going to leave a property vacant for an extended period of time. A small fee to come with it, re-register every 6 months. But you know who the point of contact is. You won't have these absentee landlords. You won't have these dilapidated buildings. You'll have a point of contact in Maine to go to. It's not going to be a perfect fix for everything, but a step in the right direction. And in the real world, that's what we need.
Mayor Macdonald?
Yes, briefly, the only buildings we've torn down are buildings that are inhabitable. We haven't been tearing down buildings. We try to save the buildings before we take them down. And maybe the neighborhoods are this way because when I came up here in 1977 and I was down in Little Canada, the people that used to live on the old French people, you could eat off the street. Today, the streets are filthy. So maybe that has something else to do with it.
Thanks. Morgan?
Thank you. When I was on the council, there were 93 buildings at one point that were targeted to be torn down. You can only tear down, because of funding, somewhere between 8 or 10 a year because of the cost to remove asbestos, things like that. So you have to continue to work at tearing down those buildings. They're dangerous. They're places where kids could go, things like that, and you don't want to get into that at all. I would continue with targeting that, and that's where code enforcement would stay on top of it.
First of all, I rent from the worst landlord in the city, according to Mr. Chin. Joe, and I'm gonna break my rule. I'm his name. Joe Dunn, Joseph Dunn, and his wife Debbie have owned 5 buildings in a row on my street, and they have rehabbed these buildings. And as far as the inner city, I live on 135 Bartlett, and it has improved. Those open spaces are great. Kids playing, and now we got to stop.
Thank you. Next question will be for Mr. Jensen. And the question is, what would you do to improve Lewiston's image throughout the state of Maine?
That is a great question, and that's reputation is probably our biggest obstacle to overcome as a city. What it requires is really getting the message out that Lewiston is not the city that we used to be, and it's not the city that people think we are. We are a much safer city. Recent police statistics really show that, safer than Portland and other places in Maine. We need to really highlight these peripheries more. When people think of Lewiston, they think of the Falls, they think of downtown Liz Street. They don't think of, these beautiful neighborhoods in South Lewiston. They don't think of No Name On. Absolutely beautiful. If people even from Cumberland County thought maybe we could live in Lewiston, get a bigger house for half the price, send our kids to good schools and safer neighborhoods, and just commute down the highway to every day, that's really something that we could get a lot of people in town for and really help build our image. And honestly, we need to take advantage of our city's peripheries, the rural and suburban areas of town.
The reputation is what is killing us. And we have so many nice neighborhoods here, but we're defined a little small piece of our city. If it wasn't for LA Art, one of the things that's bringing back the Lewiston is LA Arts, because they're bringing in people there, they're seeing the city and they're looking at this, well, you know what, this really isn't that bad a city. So I think they've done a lot to help get going. But this is a beautiful city, and you just got to advertise it.
Thank you. I addressed the image issue in my first opening remarks, and most problems, it takes some sort of money to fix these issues. With downtown, I think if you put regulations on downtown store frontage and change the zoning a little bit so that there was some restrictions on some conformity, and I think that would be a better thing to do. I completely agree with what Luke said. It's too bad about it, the image, and we've got to all continue to work on it.
I was talking with the retired police chief, Gendro. Probably don't remember him, some of you may. But I've actually seen the Lewiston people on the offense in the inner city, and I live in the inner city. I go out at 2:30 in the morning collecting bottles and cans to pay my campaign, because I'm not taking any money from anyone. And it is beautiful.
There's two parts. The first is a that's unwarranted, and the second is a kernel of truth about blight. The term is form-based comprehensive plan. You can read about the crowd that code enforcement. Read more about that in the report Maine People's Alliance released. So I'm really glad to start the evening off with just a resounding across the board endorsement of making sure that we do more to up our code enforcement. I think see our reputation turn around.
Thank you. The next question. Are you do you believe the arts have helped the city, and how?
Do I believe it helps the city?
Yes. How?
Yes, I do. I do believe it helps the city. Now, welfare, as they make me out to be. Welfare is a necessary thing. We have to have that. But it's a short-term thing. It is not generational. And what's going on here now is that if you just looked at the paper this morning, you'll see all these new kids coming in from out of state, out of town, into our schools. And this is killing us. This is not Portland. This is a very poor city. And a lot of the people that live here are on fixed incomes. And they can't afford these shouldn't be. And again, talk about overcrowding. Well, you're going to see a lot more overcrowding. If you think those classes are going to get smaller, you're wrong. And the school committee does a very good job containing the costs that we have right now. If it wasn't for them, we'd be in bad shape.
Shane, can you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. The question is, it was to Mayor Macdonald. As mayor, you have pushed to reduce welfare costs and dependency. Do you believe those efforts have helped the city, and how?
I think Mayor Macdonald's done a wonderful job towards welfare. I think there still could be more done. Obviously, with the newspaper articles, things like that, there's people out there that are going to target fraud, and that's what we need to do. We need to stay on top of those people that are abusing the system. But there's a lot of good elderly people that are struggling to make their own medication payments and things like that, and those people need to end up. And that's why they paid taxes for years after years after years, and they deserve that hand up, and we shouldn't take anything away from them.
First of all, I was talking to Somalis before I came in here because Maga'a Chuck, Maga'a, what is your name? But anyways, I told them I was going to put a residence clause on the city that you have to live here 6 months to a year before you can go on general assistance. And I told them it isn't because we don't like the Somalis, it's because these can us financially. And if they can live here 6 months to a year, then they can go on general assistance if they need assistance. And they were agreeing to that.
When the mills were open and you could graduate from high school and get a job that wasn't going to make you rich, but it was enough to buy a house and raise a family, we have these issues. That's the root cause of this. Anybody who says different is trying to get your vote. The real way you address this is by creating good-paying jobs. There's no gate we can close to prevent people from being here. That he has zero influence over the eligibility requirements that these programs are set at the state and federal level. And by Mayor Macdonald's own admission in his last Twin City Times article, he's had zero success changing any of that. So if you're looking for a plan to actually address the cause, check out benchinfrom.com.
Yes, I would say the mayor's efforts for welfare reform have been a thing. It's on the right track. I think we could do a much better job. I think being more diplomatic can get a quicker and better result. Just because you're on the right side doesn't necessarily mean you get what you want. So I think we could be much more diplomatic about it. There are families that have been here generations that are really bearing the burden. Families that have never really asked much from the city. And so when they see people coming into Lewiston, literally walking into Lewiston and asking for money from the taxpayers, it's insane.
Mr. Morgan, do you generally favor the idea of combining Lewis and Auburn under a single city government, and why?
I generally favor the investigation to do that. I applaud the people that are volunteering their time, some great people on that board, 2 or 3 from each community. They're going to be able to look and hopefully justify. There's a lot of hiccups that come if you do something like that. They're going to evaluate those hiccups and find out, are they worth doing? Where along the way, even if they decide, no, it's not worth making that kind of a change, they may find some ways for us to save money and collaborate different resources and services as we have with them in regards to, it could be oil, it could be paper purchases, it could be a number of different things. So yes, I love the fact that they're doing it. Just for the record, I've only got 10 seconds left. Mr. Chen, if I hear the word corporate slumlord one more time in the paper and whatnot, I'm going to cringe. Thanks.
No consolidation. I grew up as the class president at EL 1973. There will be no consolidation. First of all, it's the hidden cost, the changing of all signs, your website. Are you born in Lewiston? You have to renew your birth certificate. That's $15 to you. And the fact that Auburn be outvoted by Lewiston due to demographic population is another thing. No consolidation. There's no hidden cost to kill you. Perhaps you think of some hidden costs.
on the plus side for consolidation, I think there's things that we can do together with our resources that we can't do individually. On the downside, I think we've seen with school consolidation in Maine that this is a technocratic process, and the technocrats whose very redundancies are the ones we're trying to eliminate are the ones that have the most power in the process. So I've got real concerns around what would happen to frontline workers and the quality of service of these cities. And with my 10 seconds, I'd just like to define the term corporate slumlord. These are folks that hide behind 29 different shell companies, corporate, have dozens of violations at all their properties in the last 5 years. Slumlords. Sorry if you cringe.
Go ahead, Mr. Jensen.
I've actually attended a few committee meetings for the Joint Charter Commission. I've attended committee meetings. It's cool to see what's going on. You just really can't get that knowledge without being there. The way I look at it, no matter what happens with Lewiston and Auburn, our destiny is tied together one way or another. If the plan is really good and it's much better than what we have now and it's really awesome, yeah, I'll support it. But it's going to be a bad plan. No, definitely not support it. It's just a little too early to give an opinion on it. Let's wait for them to finish the plan before we judge the plan.
As I said at their first meeting that they had to consolidation, you know, you don't have to change street names. You don't have to change it. It could be the Lewiston section of Lewiston Auburn. It could be the Auburn section. We could still have high schools. We could do all this stuff, just like other cities do. I really feel that economically we would be an advantage, and definitely politically we would be an advantage. So I am definitely for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Soule, your question. Do you favor complete streets, which is the effort to make all city roadways safe for cars, bikes, and pedestrians?
Sure, I'm for that. Matter of fact, I would like to see the inner city streets be dropped to 15 miles an hour during the summer hours. It's a high active, high youth area, and I would propose that. I also like to, I'm a bicyclist. I bicycle everywhere. Keeps me in shape at 62. And I do like the bike lanes. However, they may not fit every street because of these jing out sidewalks we have, which narrow the street down. I don't know how the snow plowers do it. I mean, it's got to be murder. And all the flat tires that I hear when they roll over. So many tires in my neighborhood been flattened because what they do is they don't take a corner wide enough and their tires pop because when they cut that stone, they cut it sharp.
My hobby is triathlons, and when Nicole and I were looking at houses, we looked from Portland all the way up to Hollowell. And one of the big draws for living here was that you don't have to choose between sort of the great country roads that you can go bike on. So I live on Kensington Terrace. Old Green Road is right there. We can live in a quiet suburban house. And then also I can bike in on a Saturday morning and get a great breakfast sandwich at Forage. So this is an excellent part of living in our city. And I think we need to continue to make these investments. And this ties into exactly what we were talking about earlier in terms of changing our reputation.
Jensen.
I just want to say that bike lanes on downtown Lisbon Street and anywhere in Lewiston don't make a whole lot of sense considering we have snow 6 months of the year. Maine is just not that place. You know, we're not California. We're not Silicon Valley. Honestly, I prefer diagonal parking downtown if we're going to do anything with the streets. More people down, closer to the building, easy access. Not all people like the parking garages. Sometimes just park in front of the building is there. So if we can get more commerce downtown, get more people shopping in our streets. Very simple solution.
Quickly, Title 29 of the motor vehicle gives bikes and cars and everybody the use of the roads. What we have to do is make sure that the road's safe so that everybody can use them.
I agree with Luke, is when we're talking about downtown, there's a lot of down traffic and whatnot, people cutting through, and geez, I'd love to see it move down to 15 miles an hour, but I don't think that's going to happen. I guess the bike lanes to get through, one to get you through the street like they have on Pine Street now is fine, but I would start town streets all bike friendly, asking for accidents. I'd use my extra seconds to back and of course slum.
That microphone back down. This question is for Mr. Chin. Every line item in the city budget matters, but which single line item or program should receive more funding? And when cuts must be made, where would you look first to save money?
Well, I'm going to do what every great politician does and reject the premise of the question. Who's leaving money on the table? We've been owed $10 million by the state of Maine over the last 4 years because of in order to pay tax breaks for the rich. The hospitals say I'm the only already doing that. The deal was getting
you're going to be able to get work very hard for that we're somehow
programs you're going to
wean off. On
Recycling rate.
people do with weight. Stay override. As someone posting too, to get active about that. I see these problems in this game. We really need to all do our part. We just really need a heightened sense of community. Realize that we all have a part to play in this community. This really is all of our homes. And if we're going to keep it the great place it is, we need to take on a little bit more responsibility and realize we might be just be making a little too much waste. Try to recycle a little bit more.
I think that on this, you really should listen next side. And I think that's the way you make a good judgment. Tax. I would add these. We'll have all these little together, these things to tell people what stuff is about. Please attend them. Ask your questions there. Don't hold your questions and then, be negative about it. Make an informed decision on this.
I think on paper, I wouldn't be surprised to see the city council pass this. It's talking about a savings $1 to $1.2 million per year. I don't, who's not to love that idea, but there are some problems, and I know the council's going to be talking about it. What happens? Who are the tenants going to pay for trash bags? Are they going to slide the trash bags down to the local dumpster? Are they going to, where are they going to end up, out in the corner of Bartlett and such a street? Where's it going to stop?
First of all, my grandfather migrated from Canada, and as I said, my father was in World War II in Korea. I'm always leery of change. If we weren't importing trash from out of state, which is burnt in Auburn and dumped in our landfill, we may not have to buy trash bags. The fact that we're importing from out of state through Auburn, dumped in our landfill, we have a life expectancy of 35 years on our dump.
This is a bad idea. The mayor voted for a $30,000 program to convince you it's a good idea. And I think if we're really concerned about a recycling rate, it might be worth expending $30,000 to make sure people are encouraged to recycle and understand how to do it. One other thing on fairy tales. The last budget is a direct contradiction to to people who believe that this is possible. We got more money for revenue sharing last year, and school funding came in higher than was expected, and you can ask Bill Webster and Ed Barrett to verify that. The way you make sure you don't get more money is by not asking for it.
Next question for Mayor Macdonald. What are your thoughts on the need to attract and retain blue-collar jobs in Lewiston, and what is your strategy to accomplish that objective?
Well, obviously, we just opened modular up in the industrial park, Gender Industrial Park, in that area there by the, it's got 60 jobs which are blue-collar, and
years. Much in the last 40 years, I usually don't get paid that well, once or twice a year. But the people in Lewiston need that. Every community blue-collar worker, and so the more we can attract here, the better. More business.
Signatures are too. Take the heat. It was a heat wave, and I had to get those. But people here, as multi.
And I think my pick Carolina, where the municipality has leveraged resources to save money on energy costs and work with local employers to actually create jobs installing solar panels on all the buildings and start building it out to residences after that.
Is key. It's outright. We can get us on the right track. Regional tech. I mean, should be successful. If you can come out of the high school and become a plumber, I mean, you can make pretty good money, twice as much money as I'm making now.
Reduce
is into sad. You know, community areas around it.
I've been in discussions with Mr. Webster, Superintendent of Lewiston Schools, and asked him not to put any facades into the new school, and that would save $10 million off the top. The state is only going to do 30,000 of the new school. 10 million will be coming from the taxpayers of Lewiston. Also, cultural ties. Why aren't we building French cars, bottling wine? We're in a world economy, and we ain't even going into our national heritage.
Promises to lower property taxes are a dime a dozen. So I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you what I've done. When the governor wanted to eliminate the homestead exemption for people under 65, we fought that, and that's actually an bill. And you see a
people think of Lewiston.
Mr. Chin is right. We can't promise you any tax cuts because we're just getting deeper in the hole every day. The only solution I see, and I've fought for it, is welfare reform, and we have to do something that goes with the schools. The schools budget is killing us, and until we get that, everybody else is getting rid of schools. We continue to build them, and this new school we're going to, as soon as it's up, we're going to have to build another one. We can't promise you anything, okay? If that would be a lie. He's right.
Next question from Mr. Soule. Describe your strategy to help immigrant populations deal with issues related to integration.
Well, first of all, I live in an integrated neighborhood. I have people and my neighbors are from the path to lives under me. Comes up to me this, and that kind of, yes, I country has got to take a stance on it and make path to citizenship. It's not going to be easy, and if you go to www.soul2015 mayor.wordpress.com, you will see that path because it's the first thing on my website. I also have on Facebook, search Mayoral, Lewiston Mayoral, rock the vote. And I bet you none of you people have even been to my site. You're too stuck in your own way. You don't. How do I get that scolded in?
Thanks. My grandfather came from China when he was 9 years old, spoke English, and was only able to make it because his principal took him in to raise him. We need to figure out how to live together as our neighbors. I'm the only candidate, again, that's put forward any kind of plan to make sure that folks can overcome the two biggest barriers to that, which is learning English and entering the workforce. Going back to money left on the table, 2 years ago, Portland won $75,000 in a bipartisan vote out of the Workforce Development Committee for a center that allowed people to get recertifications so their credentials could take from their country into this one. We need to be doing that in Lewiston.
I'd say a federal policy is the biggest roadblock that we have for immigrants in Lewiston. People, when they come here, they want to work, and we want them to work. You know, they don't want to, you could say, mooch off the system. So the federal policy that doesn't allow them to work for a period of time is really hurting, and that's something that we should really be going after more. You know, my ancestors came to Lewiston 100 years ago, Francos, and to work in the mills. We've worked hard for many, many generations to get where we are today. So we definitely understand the importance of immigration, especially here in Lewiston. So honestly, really got to push education for the young immigrants and our youth. That way we can build ourselves up.
I have asked and asked the federal government for help. I might as well be talking to the wall over there. They completely ignore you. I have asked for help to get people English, to immerse them in English. Might as well have talked to the wall. The only people who responded, and it was just a little bit of help, but it was something, was Governor LePage and Ethan Drumling. Now there's a combination right there. But they helped, okay? They helped. Nobody wants to. They throw people here and they just forget about them. And these people, as far as schooling goes, these people, especially the Somalis, they excel in school. They excel.
I just started a couple weeks ago working with the New Americans. As I said, I sell real estate. They approach me. They're looking for a building that they could set up and teach classes and do something. They want to be somewhat right in the immediate area of downtown within walk distance, because so many of them can walk there. But they're looking to do the basics, and we've talked about it, learning how to, the basics like filling out a checking account, making a money order, a number of different things. So yes, I think we should continue to help them and find that spot.
For Mr. Chin, if you can pass the microphone that way. What is your vision for business and activities to make Mill Number 5 a sustainable, vibrant park community?
Thanks for the question. First of all, I want to say that Tom Platt's a guy who is lead in many ways on redeveloping it, is a supporter of mine. And a lot of the ideas that were in the plan that I released, I unashamedly took from him and all the other business owners that I've been dealing with. So I think the first thing we have to do is recognize that this would be an absolutely transformational project. And I was happy to participate in the charrettes that just occurred around figuring out what's next for it. We need to have policies that are actually conducive to this. This, if we were able to redo Mill Number 5, would completely transform our whole city. The time remaining, I want to point out something that I think is remarkable and makes me really proud to be up here on the stage with all of these other candidates, which is that question around creating a diverse, immigrant, integrated community. There was unanimous opinion that that was actually an important, valid thing. And so I think that says something about our city, and it says that if you are someone who's not on that same page, there is no one to vote for this year.
Thank you. Mr. Jensen?
Mill number 5, somewhat of an icon here in Lewiston, and it'd be much better to see something done with it rather than tear it down. I kind of struggled with that last few years about what we should do. It's a great building. We really should keep it preserved the way it is. I know the economy is not as great as it could be, but down the road we'll probably get more activity. I know Baxter Brewing right next door, they've always thought about maybe expanding a little bit more. Talk of, as you mentioned, Mr. Platt's development. With Mill number 5, I see it as an important part of our state, almost part of our heritage, and we need to ensure that it gets developed.
Yeah, the development of Mill number 5, when you see what's going to go on down there, this is going to be a showcase, and this is going to attract the people of the city. And I guess I would have to thank Mr. Platts because he took the bull by the horns, and he's ushered this thing place in. And hopefully soon we'll have a announcement to make, and I think everybody will be very pleased. Thank you.
I agree. I will probably lose a few votes right here, but I was on the last council that the night before they were going to tear it down, I voted not to tear it down, which I've had some hemming and hawing of that over the years. But I'm glad we didn't. It's a historic building, a wonderful building. I've got a couple of plans for it myself. I've actually just reached out to Shannon Rogers, hopefully to be able to talk to her about approaching somebody for it, for a good-sized piece of that. And I wish I could disclose a little more, but it's a real estate transaction, and I can't right at this time.
Hopefully you haven't got a share in it. The reason they can't tear down Bates Mill number 5 is because it makes up part of the canal. It makes up one of the walls of the canal. I have no problem with developing Bates Mill number 5, but I will not put up for Lewiston taxpayers' dollars going into it, and no TIF, tax incentive finances. Lewiston taxpayers, I think, have had it with paying for other people's gain.
Thank you. Question for Mr. Jensen. Lewiston Auburn has the largest chamber in the state. What are your plans and experience can you bring to the job to support these local businesses thrive?
Well, I'm always someone who likes to, of course, like various committee meetings, meet as many people as possible. I like to get a comprehensive idea. And so I'm not someone who's maybe a specialist in certain things, but again, I like comprehensive about it. I'm 24 years old. I've never owned a business. I'm not the guy to ask for when you ask for business advice. I'm someone who can organize people, get them together. I get the right people who know what they're doing, and we get them together. That's how we get a plan. I mean, you can look at a president of the United States. One person alone can't do everything. They have good secretaries to go with them. And so that's what I would do as a mayor. Is I don't have all the answers myself, but I am committed to getting the people that have the answers to work together. And as a community, we can get it done.
I have no standing at the Chamber of Commerce. It is the largest one. I do go out there. I do talk to people, but there's no way that a mayor, you're going to interfere with what they're doing over there. We can, you can make contacts over there, and you can use those contacts in order to create businesses here. But as far as running the Chamber of Commerce, it's an organization, they run themselves, and the mayor really has nothing to do with this.
I agree a lot with the mayor. I think the only thing he could do is every time he cuts a ribbon is introduce him to the Chamber of Commerce and tell him it's one of the best organizations in Lewiston, Auburn, greater Lewiston, Auburn. And the business and stuff though there are tremendous, and we've grown a lot because of the excitement that's been generated over the last 5 to 10 years.
First of all, I mentioned weeding off some of the people, large grants from the Community Development Block Grant. Some of that could be utilized in subsidizing business rents. Let's face it, a person goes into business, they got 2 rents to pay, they got 2 electric bills to pay, 2 phones. So that's quite an expense, and I believe that one way of doing that is to wean off people off that have been on the community block grant money for a long time and use that money to help businesses get established.
Here's my favorite way of figuring out what businesses need is actually sitting down and asking them, what do you need? And then coming up with a list and then putting it out there and getting support behind it. So that's what I've done. I'll actually say, Matt led the chamber. We had a great conversation. The ideas that are in the business proposal, my plan, came from him. I've sat down with Eric at Fuel. I've sat down with Randy at Guthrie's. I've sat down with Savita at Mother India. I've sat down with John at Rainbow. There are very simple things you can do to help businesses. Please, someone ask me a question about parking later on, because you would not believe the complaints that business owners have about parking, all of which are easy to solve, none of which cost very much money.
Mayor Macdonald, do you favor or oppose alternate education methods such as charter schools for Lewiston students?
Well, if they're not teaching, if you favor charter schools, if you're not teaching, they're not getting the education they need in a public school, then by God, they should be able to get an education. I mean, this is not to pit sides against each other. This is not right. All it does is split the community. Okay, the only thing that we should be worrying about here is making sure that every kid in this community gets a good education, because that's going to sit there and that's what's going to drive this community forward. Okay, not pitting one group against another.
Again, I agree completely with Mayor Macdonald, so I'll pass on this and move on.
I've actually, on my website, which you people have studied thoroughly, I'm sure. Once again, that was www.soul2015mayor.wordpress.com. I have a idea that I would let individuals opt out of the Lewiston Public School system if they had lived here for 5 years, so that they could use that would have been expended on their child in school and take it to a private school or parochial school. And that's on the website.
I'll take a couple educations all at once here. I think public education should be public. And I think strange things start to happen when you introduce corporate profit motive into it. So I think we already talked earlier about the resource issues our public school face. I don't see how creating a whole institution solves any of that. Furthermore, when you look at issues like standardized testing and all of the requirements that teachers are having to be evaluated on today, you start to wonder who's actually making money off of all these requirements and are they actually working? There's no evidence to support charter schools have any higher quality of education.
Yeah, I saw so many of my classmates when I was in high school that they fell through the cracks. The school system wasn't designed very well for them, and it's not necessarily their own fault. It happens in life. I mean, if you're a homeless 16-year-old, are you really expected to do well in school? How can you really do well in school? So we can't have this one formula. You have to do this. This is going to determine your financial success for the rest of your life. We need different forms of education for our youth. If it means spending a little bit more money sometimes on charter schools, okay. We need to make sure all of our youth are educated. At the end of the day, it's an investment. It's not wasting money.
Question for Mr. Morgan. Do you propose to attract young people to move to Lewiston and buy property in Lewiston and help improve the housing stock?
That's a big question. Again, bringing business into Lewiston, that's going to cause an overflow and a repertory business opening up. And that'll bring more jobs to the people that are here and hopefully keep the young people that are here in the city. As far as the housing stock, I've sold real estate for a long time. Let me just take these 30 seconds or whatever to harp on it. I've sold I'm going to go off back here a little bit. I've sold some of these buildings, multifamily buildings, to some of the corporate lords that he's talking about for as little as $15,000 to $20,000. Now, what shape do you think those buildings were in when they bought them? And immediately, the first thing they did, put all new windows, all new siding on those properties. I've seen the apartments before they rent them out. What they need is some tenant education also. It's a two-way street. It's not just corporate slumlords, it's tenant education.
Thank you. Mr. Soule?
I have on my website business and cultural genealogy. I believe that we should be, if we're moving into a global economy, why aren't we tapping our French heritage and produce French automobiles here? And bus, bottling wine, cutlery. I believe we should touch our French roots, and I think we ought to touch our French roots and get in touch with our culture and start building French automobiles. We build every... Was I penalized for them clapping?
The gold standard in housing is 77 and 79 Maple Street, where you can see what the Raise Up has done to rehab these buildings. This is the model that I'm talking about, where you're getting past the landlord-tenant thing, and you actually have people who are living in buildings with an ownership stake in it. Our city needs to plow all the resources we can into blowing that up so that we can change the market. When you have to actually decide between, my rent is going to be this much, are we going to invest it in kind of capital improvement or that kind of capital improvement, that's a kind of conversation that's good for the city, it's good for the people who live in the buildings, and it's going to get us beyond this tenant-landlord thing that's been plaguing us too.
As far as attracting young people to the city, I think having a young mayor would really express that and say that we are a young city, and hey, 25-year-old mayor, you're welcome here in Lewiston. And it harps back to talking about the rural and suburban parts of town. I mean, those areas are beautiful. If young families only think of some like the more like downtown, not as nice neighborhoods, and they think that that's be moving their family to, they're not going to be inclined to do so. We all know that. But if they can see some of the awesome neighborhoods, South Lewiston, No Name Pond area, and they realize they can get a house for half the price and pay twice as big, they're going to come here.
A couple of things we've done. We have these trails along the river. We have a very nice one up by, I forget the name of the park. Anyway, they go towards Tall Pines. But what we're trying to do right now is to get these trails going all the way down to Lisbon. Once we get those trails to Lisbon, it's hard, so we will be able to attract other families here. The other thing that we did is we put a pocket pet mill because there's a lot of older people there, and they're looking to sell houses, and hopefully they will have a younger clientele coming in to buy the houses because it'll be a prime neighborhood.
Question for Mr. Soule. Do you favor bringing passenger train traffic to Lewiston, and how do you respond to the complaints that it could end up being a huge government subsidy?
Would you repeat the question?
Or do you favor bringing passenger train traffic to Lewiston, and how do you respond to the complaints that it will be a huge government subsidy?
I agree with the subsidy idea. Amtrak is heavily subsidized. First of all, I don't know who's going to be able to afford to take the train compared to taking a bus or taking an automobile, and sometimes I even hitchhike. So anyways, no, I'm not for that. If you want to invest in the railroads that are already here. I don't know if any of you have taken a look at the trestles. As I say, that is a losing idea.
I support a train coming to Lewiston, and I think it's worth noting that all forms of transportation require massive public subsidies. So roads are publicly subsidized, buses, airplanes, these are all highly regulated, highly subsidized forms of transportation. So the question just becomes, where does the money actually come from? And I think I'm the only candidate up here with a track record of actually figuring that question out. The last thing I'd say is, point single city, a single great city that doesn't have all the above forms of transportation. There's just a limit to how great we can become if we deny ourselves opportunity.
A long time ago that Lewiston residents actually banded together, put some money together, and opened the rail station. And as a part of that, a lot of the Francos came to Lewiston. So there's a history of Lewiston voters investing money in rail service. Honestly, Lewiston's the second biggest city in the state. Not even considering Auburn, just alone Lewiston is. Yet, we don't have a major university. We seem to lack a lot of things that other cities in the state have. So having passenger rail, I think, is really good for the city. And being the second biggest in the state, it's something that could really help our economy.
I'm all for the train, but let me just give you a little aside here. Okay, when the train originally came in down to where Rails Restaurant is, that was, the money that was used was money that was collected apparently by people that made pennies, nickels, and dimes from the people of the city of Lewiston. They had to pay for the railroad to come in. We now have a railroad which went in here, and we are being treated differently because they asked us, they want to know what we had, what skin in the game we have. Nobody's ever asked that question, just Lewiston Auburn. So you can understand what this place is, how we are being treated here in Augusta.
I served on the train board for 3 years. I've served on the airport board for 2 years, and I'm all for bringing them up here. As far as how we fund them, boy, that's a battle that's going to take a long time. I'm glad that Mr. has it figured out, because there's a lot of bright people and a lot of, over the years, have been trying to figure out how to take that from here to Montreal and haven't figured it out yet. So we're almost saved.
Next question for Mr. Chin, if you could pass that back down. What would you do to address the influx of the number of students in our schools?
Number one thing, this is going to get a little wonky, but there's real money out there to deal with this. And so I'm just going to go back to the fact that on the very first page of the application that our school system sends to the state to receive state funding, we deduct Title I money straight off the bat. Now, the statute, the federal statute, follow me here, says Title I funding shall supplement but not supplant state funding for these schools. That means you can't take $1 out of Lewiston schools if the state is also giving you $1. So this is like the number one thing, because it's actually illegal for our schools to be denied this. And if I were mayor, I would be shouting this from the rooftops. Okay, we have legitimate resource concerns of overcrowding and quality of education in our classrooms. This is illegal. The federal government sends a letter to the state of Maine every single year asking for an explanation on this. There is no excuse for why we're leaving this money on the table.
Mr. Jensen.
All right. Part of my plan is to work closer with the school committee. I attend a lot of committee meetings. It's one of those things you really have to be there to get the full picture. They don't videotape the meetings, and the minutes for those meetings are very poor at best. So by attending that, you get a closer relationship, which the mayor really should have. Considering the growing budget of education and the city budget as a whole, the mayor really needs to have a closer relationship with the school committee, be more in the know what's going on, and just that way you can collaborate, find ways to save money. It's just much more efficient.
You want to be a dictator. The school committee is a separate entity. The city council or the mayor have any control over that. The other ones that are elected, the entire do. Okay? And I certainly